She only wanted $50 to buy baby formula. Not a miracle, not a handout, just enough to feed her baby for one more night. But with one trembling thumb, she sent the message to the wrong number. And on the other side of that text, a billionaire, a man with everything and nothing left to feel. What happened next was not a coincidence. It was fate, with a keyboard, a crying baby, and a mother too tired to hope. This isn't just a story about a mistake. It's about the moment one life shattered and another refused to look away. Stay with us. You'll never forget this one. It was nearly 1 a.m. when Callie Thompson wrapped her arms around herself, sitting cross-legged on the cold tile floor of her dimly lit kitchen. A thin pink baby blanket was draped over her shoulders, not to warm her, but to comfort the tiny baby crying in the next room. She hadn't eaten since lunch. The formula can was empty. Her 7-month-old daughter, Lily, had gone to sleep after a bottle mixed mostly with water. Outside, the world slept, but Callie couldn't. The power company had cut her lights earlier that day. Her phone was down to 4% battery, her rent was overdue, and now Lily was hungry again. The kind of hungry that pierced the night and a mother's heart all at once. With trembling fingers, Callie opened her phone and tapped on her brother's contact, Jake Thompson. He'd helped her before, but always with judgment in his voice. Tonight, she didn't care about pride. "Jake, I hate doing this again. Can you send $50? I just need formula. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back. Please." She hit send without double-checking, and that was the moment everything changed. 5 blocks away in a high-rise overlooking downtown Houston, a man named Graham Lockwood was finishing a late-night report in the solitude of his penthouse office. He was the kind of billionaire most people never saw. CEO of Arkite Technologies, a reclusive widower, and one of the most quietly powerful figures in biotech. His phone buzzed. He rarely used that number. It was for family, what little of it remained. He read the message once, then again. "Jake, I hate doing this again. Can you send $50? I just need formula. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back. Please." Not a scam, not a wrong number prank, just a tired voice in a digital bottle floating across the night. He should have ignored it. Most nights he would have. Instead, he typed, "Is your baby going to be okay?" Back in her kitchen, Callie's phone buzzed. She blinked at the message. Her first instinct was to throw the phone across the room. Who follows up after getting a wrong number? She wrote back, "We'll manage. Sorry, wrong number." A second reply came almost instantly. "I can help. No strings." She scoffed aloud. "Yeah, right. Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers." Smart policy. I'm Graham, not a stranger anymore. She didn't reply. Instead, she rocked Lily to sleep, crying the kind of tears that didn't come from being broke, but from being tired of being broke. And then, she did something she never imagined she would. She sent him her Cash App. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed again. $5,000 received from Graham Lockwood. She stared at the screen like it might vanish, checked the app, then checked again. $5,000. "This is too much," she texted. "I only needed $50. "It's already yours," came the reply. No catch. One less thing to worry about. She didn't cry when her car got repossessed. She didn't cry when she got laid off from the hospital's research lab. She didn't cry when Lily's father ghosted her the moment he learned she was pregnant. But now, she cried, silent shaking sobs into the soft shoulder of a worn baby blanket. "Thank you," she wrote. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Graham replied. "Just take care of Lily." Her breath caught in her throat. She never told him Lily's name. Callie stayed up the rest of the night on the edge of her worn-out mattress, clutching her phone like it held a lifeline. Because maybe, for once, it did. And as the first light of dawn crept through the broken blinds of her apartment, Callie looked at her daughter's sleeping face and whispered, "Maybe, just maybe, something's finally changing." The next morning, Callie was jolted awake by a knock at the door. Not a text, not a notification, a real knock. She froze. No one knocked on her door. Not in this neighborhood. Not unless it was trouble. Lily stirred against her chest, still wrapped in the same blanket from the night before. Callie quietly pulled on a hoodie and padded barefoot to the door. Her heart was pounding as she peeked through the peephole. A man in a Navy delivery uniform stood on the other side, holding a digital clipboard. "Delivery for Callie Thompson." He asked, his voice muffled but clear. Callie nodded, lips parting, but no sound coming out. Need your signature. She opened the door slowly, still unsure if she was dreaming. After signing, she watched the man wheel 4 massive boxes into the hallway. Then he tipped his cap and left, like it was just another Thursday. Callie locked the door behind her, then slowly lowered herself to her knees and opened the first box. Formula, bottles, diapers, wipes, organic baby food pouches, little blankets, a tiny teething giraffe, not one off-brand item in sight. The second box, baby clothes, soft cotton onesies, little fleece pajamas, and a set of cozy socks in pastel shades. The third and fourth boxes contained even more essentials, including nursing supplies, a high-end bottle warmer, and a small white noise machine shaped like a lamb. At the bottom of the final box sat a sealed envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note on heavy cream-colored stationery. No logo, no contact information, just a message in careful block letters. She should have what she needs. Lily deserves better than barely getting by. Callie pressed the note to her chest, tears brimming again. Who was this man? What kind of stranger did this? And what did he really want? She didn't touch the boxes again for hours. They sat in the living room like artifacts from a dream she hadn't woken up from. Lily, warm and full for the first time in days, napped in her arms with the tiniest, most peaceful sighs. Still, Callie couldn't shake her suspicion. People don't just do things like this, not without a camera, not without a catch. Eventually, the curiosity won. She opened her browser and typed, Graham Lockwood. The results popped up instantly. CEO of Arkite Technologies, net worth $12.4 billion, former combat medic, founder of Life Code Initiative, widowed, no children, reclusive, rarely photographed, nicknamed the Ghost Architect in tech circles. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just a kind stranger. This was him. The man who owned the patents behind half the world's AI health software. The one who testified before Congress without smiling once. The same man who now knew her name and her baby's name. She opened their text thread again and stared at his last message. Just take care of Lily. It didn't sound like a CEO. It sounded like someone who remembered what hunger felt like. She typed, why are you really doing this? 10 minutes passed, then 20. Her heart sank. Maybe he'd regretted it. Maybe he realized she wasn't worth the risk. Then her phone lit up. Because I know what it's like to lose someone you can't save. And no child should ever feel that kind of pain. Callie stared at the screen, stunned. Those weren't lines from a motivational book. They weren't pitying. They were raw, true, and they hit her like a fist to the ribs. She typed back, I don't want your pity. It's not pity, came the reply. It's recognition. She leaned her head back against the peeling wall behind her and closed her eyes. For once, the silence didn't feel like failure. It felt like something opening. Then her phone buzzed again. Do you work? She hesitated. I did clinical diagnostics research, but after Lily came and the lab shut down, the daycare I could afford closed too. So, no, not right now. What was your field? Bioanalytics. I interned at MedTech Crossline. Also know how to clean bathrooms, make espresso, and file taxes. I can't pay. She expected silence. Instead, come by Arclight HQ tomorrow, 10 a.m., ask for Mallory. No strings. Just a conversation. Her fingers hovered over the keys. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to take one back. That night, Callie laid Lily down in her crib, now warm, now full, now smiling in her sleep. Then she sat in the dark and stared at the ceiling for a long time, because someone out there, someone with everything, had looked down and seen her in her nothing, and didn't look away. The next morning, Callie stood outside Arclight headquarters, her breath catching at the sheer scale of the building. She'd seen it in the news, a sleek glass tower rising like a monolith in downtown Houston, topped with the silver emblem of the company's genetic research division. But standing in front of it, now wearing her cleanest thrift store blouse, secondhand blazer, and the one pair of slacks she hadn't donated in last winter's panic, made it feel more like a dream than ever. Lily was snuggled to her chest in a soft baby wrap, wide-eyed and babbling as if she knew something big was happening. The rotating glass doors parted with a soft whisper as she stepped inside. The lobby was minimalist and modern, with warm wood panels, ambient lighting, and an air of unshakable purpose. There were no marble statues or walls cluttered with egos, just clean lines and silent efficiency. A woman behind the front desk looked up. "Hi, I'm Callie Thompson. I'm here to see Mallory." The receptionist smiled with a flicker of recognition. That startled Callie more than anything. "You're expected. 36th floor. Ms. Mallory Knox will meet you by the elevators." Callie blinked. Expected. The elevator opened the moment she stepped in front of it. 36 floors up, the doors slid open to reveal a woman in her 40s, poised and professional, with sleek dark hair and a tablet tucked under one arm. "Callie, I'm Mallory Knox, Chief of Staff to Mr. Lockwood. He's in meetings, but he asked me to give you a tour." Callie followed her down a glass-walled corridor that offered sweeping views of the skyline. "I'm not entirely sure what this is," Callie admitted, voice low. "Feels like the setup for a joke. Single mom walks into a billion-dollar company." Mallory's lips curved slightly. "Mr. Lockwood doesn't do jokes. He does precision." They stopped in front of a room with a frosted glass door. Mallory unlocked it, then stepped aside. "He told me to show you this first." Inside, the space didn't look like an office at all. It was a nursery, fully furnished. There was a crib in the corner, a mobile of stars above it, a changing table, a plush rug. Shelves stocked with baby books, a white noise machine softly humming, and blackout curtains pulled halfway across the windows. Callie covered her mouth. Mallory spoke softly. "He thought it might help you feel more comfortable." Callie stepped inside, slowly stunned. The room didn't scream wealth. It whispered care, thoughtful, intentional. Every item seemed chosen for function and warmth, not flash. She turned to Mallory. "Why?" Mallory met her eyes. "Because he knows what it feels like to walk in alone." 20 minutes later, Callie sat in a modest meeting room, Lily asleep in the sling across her chest. A fresh cup of coffee steamed in front of her. The door opened. Callie looked up and saw him. Graham Lockwood, in the flesh. He looked exactly like the photos online. Tall, controlled jaw, set like stone. But up close he was also real. The weariness in his eyes wasn't curated. It was lived in. "Callie," he said simply, like they already knew each other. "Thanks for coming." She stood awkwardly unsure what to do with her hands. "I wasn't sure if I should. You came anyway. That's what matters." He sat across from her, forearms resting on the table. "Before we talk about anything else, let me be clear. You owe me nothing. This isn't a test. I don't do charity, but I do invest in people." She studied him. He wasn't bluffing. "Why me?" He looked down for a second, then met her eyes again. "Because I saw someone who didn't ask for a shortcut, who didn't expect anything, who watered down formula instead of letting her baby cry. Someone like that I'd trust with anything." Her throat tightened. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, a 3-month contract offer flexible hours, audit support, on-site or remote work, pay listed at more than what she'd made in half a year at the lab. "This is real," she whispered. "It is." She glanced at Lily, then back at Graham. "And the nursery." He gave a small, tired smile. "Also real." They sat in silence, and for once it wasn't awkward. It was understanding. She closed the folder. "I'll take it." Her first day at Arkite was quiet and without fanfare. She wore the same outfit, pressed again freshly Febrezed, and slipped in through the side entrance. Lily, swaddled in her carrier, babbled softly as they passed through security. Callie expected stares. She got smiles. Even the receptionist greeted her with a warm, "Welcome back," as if she belonged here already. Mallory was waiting near the elevator with a cup of coffee and a knowing nod. "Lily's room is ready, and yours is just across the glass." Her office was compact, glass-walled, and spotless. A large ergonomic chair, 2 monitors, and a brand-new company-issued laptop sat waiting. Through the glass she could see the nursery. Lily was already cooing on the soft rug, waving her arms at a colorful mobile. Callie sat at her desk, exhaled deeply, and placed her hands on the keyboard. It had been over a year since she last worked, since she last felt like she had purpose, since she last had something to protect other than just surviving. She opened the audit system, checked the reconciliations folder, and started working. By the end of the first hour, she'd already spotted something that didn't add up. By the end of her first week, Callie had found it. Not the whole truth, just enough of the thread to know something was unraveling. She didn't mean to go digging, not at first. She was just doing her job, reconciling vendor payments and back-end billing ledgers. But the more she reviewed, the more one name kept resurfacing: North Crest Solutions. It wasn't flagged, no alerts, no missing entries, just off. The company appeared across multiple departments, logistics, R&D, even legal. The payment amounts varied, 1 to 250. Here, 300 there. Always just below internal thresholds that would trigger automatic reviews. Callie cross-referenced them all. No project tags. No requester listed. No contact information. Just a vendor ID tied to a Delaware holding address. She sat back in her chair. This isn't an accident, she muttered. It was clean. Too clean. Later that afternoon, while Lily napped in the nursery, Callie stood outside Graham's office, heart pounding like a drum. She knocked twice. The door opened almost immediately. He was standing near the window, a cup of black coffee in one hand, tie loosened. "You found something?" he asked, not surprised, not even curious. "Yes," she said, stepping inside, "and I think it's serious." She handed him a small encrypted USB drive. It's not confirmed, but enough to raise questions. He plugged the drive into his monitor, scanned the files. His expression shifted from calm to concentrated. "Northcrest. I've seen this name." Callie nodded. "It's a shell. No staff, no contact trail. Payments routed from multiple departments, all under the radar. Whoever's doing this knows your system inside and out." Graham exhaled slowly through his nose. "Because they helped build it." He turned away, staring out over the city. "I've suspected something for months," he said quietly. Numbers drifted. Budgets didn't match reports. But no one in finance would chase it. Too subtle. Too explainable. So, why not bring in outside auditors? "Because I don't know who I can trust." Callie nodded, feeling the weight of those words. She'd lived that kind of isolation. When you lose enough, you stop reaching for help. "So what now?" Graham turned back toward her, his expression serious but not cold. "We keep digging. Quietly. If anyone asks, you're reconciling back-end ledgers, no names, no trails, no email. You're asking me to investigate your own company. I'm asking you to find the truth." Her lips curved ever so slightly. "If I find something ugly, then we deal with it." That night, Callie lay awake in the quiet of her apartment. Lily was curled against her chest, breathing softly. But her mind was racing. The files, the patterns, the lack of oversight. Whoever set this up wasn't greedy. They were careful, patient, surgical, and they'd been getting away with it for years. By 7:15 the next morning, Callie was already at her desk, sipping coffee and cross-referencing invoice IDs. She traced the Northcrest payments across 2 fiscal quarters, always timed during executive travel windows or system maintenance weeks, each routed through a different approver. But the device ID, every time, it was the same. She froze. "Someone's using ghost credentials," she whispered. That night, she compiled her findings into a secure folder labeled Proof. Then she texted Graham. "I need 5 minutes, alone, urgent." His office was dimly lit when she entered. Graham sat behind his desk reading a contract. But the moment he saw her expression, he set it aside. "More?" he asked. She nodded and handed over the printed report. Page after page, highlighted payments, time-stamped logins, device IDs that didn't match listed users. "It's not just shady," she said. "It's orchestrated. The approvals come from different logins, but the access point always the same. That means someone's duplicating or hijacking credentials." Graham flipped through the pages, jaw tight. "That's why no one caught it. It's not fake data. It's borrowed." He leaned back in his chair, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "We need confirmation, evidence that can't be deleted or spun, and I know where to start." "Where?" He opened his drawer and pulled out a photo. A man in his 40s, clean-cut suit, crisp smile, cold. Evan Trask, our CFO, hired 2 years ago after the last one stepped down, suddenly. Pushed system changes, created exclusive oversight channels, quietly removed redundancy checks. No one blinked. Callie stared at the photo. She'd heard the name. "You think it's him?" "I know it is." "Then why me?" Graham looked at her, no hesitation. "Because you don't owe anyone here anything, and you don't scare easy." She returned to her desk, pulled Lily from the nursery, and sat in the armchair near the crib, heart racing. She looked at her daughter's sleeping face and whispered, "We just walked into a fire, and we're not backing out." For the next 3 days, Callie barely spoke to anyone outside of Graham. She came in early, stayed late, worked during lunch breaks, not because she was afraid, Because she was determined. There was a storm inside Arkite Technologies, and she was tracking it one silent flash at a time. Every time she thought she'd reached the bottom of the trail, another thread emerged. A different department, a new payment, another duplicate credential. By Thursday afternoon, the picture was becoming disturbingly clear. The Northcrest transactions were deliberate. They had been designed to be invisible, built to weave into the fabric of day-to-day spending, blending just enough to avoid suspicion, but structured so precisely they left only one possible conclusion. This wasn't sloppiness. It was theft. Graham summoned her to his office just after sunset. He didn't look surprised when she walked in carrying a second folder, thicker this time, labeled with bold red marker, Deep Pattern Northcrest. Q2 to present. She dropped it on his desk. It's all there, she said. Over a dozen payments routed through 5 departments. Each time through a different login, but always through the same device, fingerprint. Graham skimmed the pages. His brow furrowed. He's using ghost credentials. Callie nodded. And he's not hiding it in complex audits. He's burying it inside mundane ones. Office renovations, vendor retainer fees, software renewals. It's brilliant. No, it's cruel, Graham muttered. This money could have funded research, paid staff, built things that mattered. He fell silent, then leaned forward. We need help. Quiet help. Like a whistleblower group. No, someone smarter. That's when she heard the name for the first time. Natalie Keller, former forensic accountant with the FBI. She's been consulting for me off the books. If anyone can make this bulletproof, it's her. Callie stiffened. You trust her? With everything. Keller called that night. The voice on the other end of the line was brisk, no-nonsense, and methodical. Miss Thompson, Mr. Lockwood said you noticed the pattern. That's rare. Tell me everything. Leave nothing out. So, Callie did. From the text, meant for her brother, to the boxes at her door, to every file she'd touched since walking into Arkite's 36th floor. When she finished, there was silence. Then Keller said, You're good. Better than half the agents I trained. And if even half of what you just described is in the data Graham sent me, Vincent Trask is in real trouble. His name's Evan, Callie corrected softly. No, it's Vincent. Evan's a middle name. His legal name is Vincent Evan Trask. Changed it on paperwork in 2019 after a fraud allegation tied to a shuttered firm in Seattle. Never charged, but not innocent. Callie's jaw clenched. She knew instinctively. This man had done it before. What happens now, she asked. We build the trap, and we make sure this time it holds. The next morning, Callie entered the office through a side entrance, just like Keller instructed. Lily was dropped off quietly in the nursery. Graham made no public appearances. Mallory pretended everything was business as usual. But under the surface, a war had started. A bait file was created, an internal memo falsely announcing a surprise audit of executive vendor contracts. It was tagged to a directory only Trask's assistant could access. Then they waited. At 12:31 p.m., Keller messaged. Ping, memo accessed, twice from assistant's login, once from Trask himself. Callie felt her stomach turn. He'd seen it. At 3:47 p.m., Graham called. His voice was calm, but with a sharp edge underneath. He's making his move. What did he do? Filed a formal ethics complaint with the board. Claims I bypassed finance controls to transfer funds to a non-authorized external hire, namely, you. Callie gripped her phone tightly. He's trying to discredit me. He's trying to remove you. That's his pattern. He isolates, then erases. Will the board believe him? Some might, but not all. Not if we go first. He paused. Are you ready to do this publicly? Callie looked across the room, where Lily napped peacefully with her giraffe plush tucked under her chin. She thought about the nights without heat, without formula, without hope. She thought about how she'd once believed no one would ever come. Then she said, I've never been more ready. That evening at 6:43 p.m., Arkite Technologies issued a public press release. Arkite launches internal audit into possible executive-level vendor misconduct. An external forensic analyst has been retained. The company has submitted preliminary findings to the state attorney's office. It was short, precise, and devastating. Within an hour, Keller submitted 38 pages of forensic evidence to the authorities. Logs, credential trails, IP fingerprints, payment structures, all tied to Trask. By nightfall, Callie's name hadn't been mentioned in the press. But inside the company, everyone already knew. The single mom who had walked in carrying a baby. She'd just blown the lid off a multi-million-dollar fraud. At 8:05 p.m., Callie's phone rang. The screen displayed unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Impressive," the voice said, smooth and venom-laced. "I underestimated you." She said nothing. "I wanted to destroy Graham. You were just a name on a report, an accident. Somehow, you became a problem." Callie exhaled. "Funny. That's how most women in power get noticed, by becoming inconvenient." A dry, humorless laugh. "You think this ends here? I know it does. You're disposable, Callie. Always have been. They'll turn on you the moment this gets messy." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. She hung up. And then she deleted the number. The next morning, the sun rose on a city buzzing with speculation. Finance blogs, tech journalists, political podcasts. Who was the mystery whistleblower inside Arkite Technologies? No names were mentioned in the official release, but someone had found a thread, and they'd pulled it until the whole thing unraveled. Callie arrived at a small apartment Graham had arranged for her and Lily the night before, listed under a shell company stocked with basic essentials, quiet and private. She didn't argue, not when Keller told her. "We can't afford to take chances, not now." The safe house wasn't just a backup plan. It was necessary. At 8:02 a.m., Mallory sent a message. "Private meeting, 9 a.m., top floor, just Graham and Trask." Callie replied, "Should I be there?" Graham says no. I say yes. Stay out of sight, but don't leave. She dressed quietly. Slate gray sweater, black jeans, and flat shoes that made no noise. She slipped into Arclight through the private elevator. Keller had wiped her access logs. Callie settled into the unused nursery suite on the 35th floor, set Lily down with her favorite blocks, and opened her laptop. The internal security feed flickered on. The conference room one floor above glowed with morning light. 9:01 a.m. Vincent Trask walked in. He looked as composed as ever. Navy suit, platinum tie, pocket square. He carried himself like a man who had already written the ending of the story, and placed himself at the center. Graham was already seated. No handshake, no greeting, just tension. "Let's skip the theater," Trask said, taking a seat across the polished table. "I know what this is." "Then you know why you're here?" Graham replied. "Because you'd rather torch the company than admit you're finished. You didn't save this company, Vincent. You bled it dry. I kept it alive when you couldn't even function." There it was. The jab, the grief card. Callie could almost hear Graham flinch, but his face didn't move. "You built your career on blind spots," he said. "You used mine to hide theft behind familiarity, but you didn't count on someone watching." Her Trask scoffed. "The redemption project. Single mom in a borrowed blazer. You really think anyone will believe her over me? I don't need them to believe her." Graham said, "I have the logs, the ghost credentials, the device traces. Federal agents signed off on the audit trail. She didn't just find it. She proved it." Trask leaned back slowly. For the first time, his smile faltered. Then he reached into his jacket and slid a small flash drive across the table. "You think you're the only one collecting data?" he asked. "I have emails, finance reports, audit logs, edited just enough to look like mismanagement on your end. And I've already spoken to 2 board members." He leaned in, voice quiet and sharp. "You have until Friday to resign, quietly. Walk away and I won't involve Callie. She gets a nice severance, silent exit. Everyone wins." Graham stared at him for a long moment. "You underestimate me." "No," Trask said, standing to button his coat. "I understand you better than anyone else in this building. You're too human now, Graham, and human doesn't survive in this world." Then he walked out, leaving behind only silence. In the nursery suite, Callie sat frozen, hands shaking, mouth dry. They were at war now, and Trask didn't fight fair. For 2 hours, Graham didn't return to his office. Callie couldn't sit still, couldn't just wait. So she printed out her report, everything, vendor names, cross-reference timestamps, credential trails, the works. Then she walked the 36th floor hallway and stepped into his office without knocking. He was at the window blinds half drawn, watching the city below, like he was waiting for it to cave in. He didn't turn around. "I saw everything she said. You weren't supposed to. You really think I'd just stay at my desk?" Now he turned, His face was pale, drawn, but his eyes met hers without hesitation. I told you this would get ugly. You didn't say he'd try to destroy you. If I take this fight public, he spins it. I become the unstable billionaire clinging to power. You become the woman I used to cover my failures. Callie's throat tightened. Then we find proof he can't spin. Graham stared at her. Not like a CEO, like a man who just realized someone might stand beside him, even when the whole tower shook. You're still in... I was in the moment I realized the math didn't add up. He picked up her report, flipped through it, slowly. I have one last card to play, he said. It's not guaranteed, but it might work. Define might? Keller's going to leak the bait memo to a known media source. Will trigger panic. Trask will either retreat or retaliate. If it's the latter, we catch him in real time. And if he senses we're setting him up, he'll try to burn us first. Then let him try. He paused, met her gaze again. This only works if you play your part. You'll be exposed. So will the truth. That night, Callie sat on the safe house couch, Lily asleep beside her laptop open. The bait memo had been released to a whistleblower watchdog blog. The fire was lit. All they had to do was wait. The trap didn't take long to spring. By mid-morning the next day, Callie's inbox was swamped with encrypted updates. Keller's forensic team had flagged a major spike in back-end login attempts. Vincent Trask's assistant had tried to access the internal audit vault twice. Then Vincent himself had logged in using an admin credential, one he wasn't even supposed to have. At 11:27 a.m., an emergency board meeting was scheduled for Friday. Wemons estón en borros. At 12:02 p.m., a new message arrived from Graham. He's planning something bigger. Brace yourself. At 1:16 p.m., Arclight's legal team received a formal internal complaint, this one naming Callie Thompson directly. Trask had accused her of being a rogue hire, an unauthorized contractor who'd received inflated payments, manipulated audit data, and interfered with executive processes without formal clearance. It was a full-blown character assassination, and it had one goal: to discredit her before the truth could speak louder. Callie stared at the document, heart pounding. Mallory called 5 minutes later. He's trying to shut you out. Let him try. You okay? No, but I'm ready. That night, the Arclight PR team launched its counterstrike. A second public statement was released at 6:43 p.m. sharp, approved by Keller, Graham, and external counsel. Arclight Technologies has formally launched a forensic-level internal investigation into financial misconduct involving unauthorized vendor accounts, credential misuse, and payment diversion. Preliminary data implicates a senior executive. Full compliance with state and federal authorities is underway. The moment the statement went live, Keller's team handed over a 38-page report to the state attorney's office, complete with timelines, credential matches, IP addresses, and digital paper trails. Every transaction led back to one name: Vincent Evan Trask. At 8:05 p.m., Callie's phone rang again. Same unknown number. She didn't hesitate this time. You think this ends with a blog post and some screenshots? Trask sneered. You've made enemies, sweetheart. Callie's voice was calm. I've made the truth public. That tends to make people uncomfortable. You're not bulletproof. You're just a temp with a baby in tow. You'll be out of here by Monday. Maybe, but you'll be in handcuffs. A pause. Then he snarled. You won't win. Too late, she said, and hung up. The next morning, the office was silent. But everyone felt it. The Whisper Network had turned into roars. Some knew what was happening. Most didn't. But by 8:58 a.m., all eyes were on the top-floor conference room. Callie watched through the live feed from the nursery suite. Lily was sitting on a plush blanket, gnawing on her teething ring, oblivious to the storm her mother had helped unleash. Inside the boardroom, Graham stood at the head of the table. Trask entered calm as ever, hiding behind his confidence like a knight's shield. Let's not drag this out, Trask said, pulling out a chair. You're panicking. I'm offering you a lifeline. Take it. The only thing I'm taking is your resignation, Graham replied. You think this stunt will stick? I don't have to think. I have evidence. I have Keller. I have timestamps and approvals that scream your name. You're bluffing. Then let's see what the state attorney thinks. Callie leaned in closer to the screen. Mallory entered next, calm, composed. Gentlemen, she said, security will be escorting Mr. Trask out. His badge access has already been revoked. HR has deactivated his accounts. For a moment, Trask said nothing. Then something cracked in his face. His smile fell. You're making a mistake. No, Graham said, standing. The mistake was thinking you were untouchable. Security entered quietly. Trask stood not resisting, but burning with fury. As he passed the camera's view, Callie saw it. He looked scared. By 10:14 a.m. it was over. Officially, Vincent Trask had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Unofficially, he was done. The board, shocked by the scale of Keller's report, voted unanimously to suspend all finance operations initiated during his tenure. They cooperated fully with the authorities. Keller sent a message. He's cornered. Charges incoming. That afternoon, Graham visited the nursery suite. He looked tired, but relieved. And for the first time since Callie had met him, he was smiling. Not the strained professional smile of a CEO trying to hide chaos. A real smile. The kind that reaches the eyes. You were right, he said. About what? About not scaring easy. Callie smiled faintly. Neither do you. Lily spotted him and reached her arms out. Without hesitation, Graham picked her up. How's my favorite little disruptor? He asked, holding her against his chest. She giggled. Then he turned to Callie. Take tomorrow off. You've earned it. And the day after tomorrow. He hesitated. I want to offer you something permanent. Callie's brows lifted. Permanent. Head of internal audit, full autonomy, direct report to me, build your team, set your rules. She stared at him. That's a big job. So is what you just did. She didn't answer right away, but her smile told him everything he needed to know. The next morning was quiet. No alarms, no news alerts, no burning emails. Just the sun peeking through the curtains of the safe house and the rhythmic, peaceful breathing of Lily curled up next to Callie on the bed. For the first time in months, her body didn't jolt awake in panic. There was no formula to stretch, no power bill in red ink, no unanswered emails wondering if she'd be evicted next. There was just stillness and safety. She lay there for a few moments longer, brushing a soft curl from Lily's forehead. Then she sat up, made coffee, and stepped out onto the tiny balcony with a blanket draped around her shoulders. Her phone buzzed. It was Graham. You holding up? He asked, voice warm. Callie glanced at the TV behind her. Another news panel debated how a quiet CEO had dismantled a fraud ring from within his own walls. I'm okay, she said. Just weird. Being the center of a storm, I didn't choose. You did choose it, he replied. You just didn't realize that until you were already in it. She chuckled. Guess that's true. There was a pause on the line, a longer one this time. I wasn't going to say this over the phone, Graham said, but I think I'd regret not saying it at all. Callie's chest tightened slightly. I don't know what happens next with the company, or even with me, but I know one thing. I trust you. That's not something I say lightly. She swallowed. I trust you too, she said, more than I expected to. Another pause. I'd like to see you, he said, if you're up for it. Callie looked over at Lily, who was now busy stacking plastic cups into a tiny teetering tower. I think we're ready to come back. The reunion wasn't dramatic. There were no swelling violins or gasps in the lobby. Callie walked in, carrying Lily on her hip, both dressed simply, neatly. She wore black flats and a gray blazer over a soft cream blouse. Lily had on polka dot leggings and a tiny denim jacket with flower patches sewn on the sleeves. A few employees nodded politely as they passed, but no one whispered. No one stared, because they all knew who she was now. Mallory greeted her with a warm smile and handed her a new badge. Callie Thompson, Director Internal Audit. Does he know I'm coming up? Callie asked, glancing toward the elevators. He's been watching the clock since 7 a.m., Mallory said with a grin. The elevator doors slid open. When she entered Graham's office, he was standing at the window, sleeves rolled up, tie, forgotten hair, slightly tousled like he'd run his hands through it more than once that morning. He turned the moment he heard the door. You came back? He said softly. I wasn't gone, she replied. He glanced at Lily, who stretched her arms toward him immediately. Without a moment's hesitation, Graham stepped forward and scooped her up, holding her like it was the most natural thing in the world. Callie watched something deep in her chest, both tightening and loosening at the same time. You kept your promise, she said. He looked at her eyes steady. Which one? All of them. He nodded, then offered quietly, let's make some new ones. 3 weeks later, Callie walked into a boardroom. This time, not as a guest, not as an accident, and not as a quiet observer with something to prove. She walked in as a leader, not the woman who had texted the wrong number, not the single mom everyone whispered about behind glass walls, not the charity case. She was the one who exposed a multi-million-dollar fraud, helped rescue one of the most valuable tech firms in the country, and did it while raising a baby on her own, with a bottle in one hand and a folder of evidence in the other. And this time she wasn't afraid. The board meeting was short. Keller had briefed them. Mallory had prepped them. Callie's role was sharp and confident. "This is the compliance framework moving forward," she said, clicking through a clean, minimal deck, transparent, decentralized, triple audited. No executive, including the CEO, can bypass it without leaving a digital footprint. She didn't look at Graham, but she could feel him watching. After the meeting, one of the board members, an older man who had once voted against Graham, approached her quietly. "You did something rare," he said. "You did your job so well, it made the rest of us look sloppy." Callie smiled, not out of pride, but out of clarity. "I wasn't trying to look good," she replied. "I was just trying to keep my kids safe." The man nodded. "That's even rarer." That night she stayed late, not because she had to, because it felt right. She double-checked her logs, sent her final email, and was about to shut down for the night when a familiar voice came from behind her. "Shouldn't you be home by now?" Callie turned. Graham stood in the doorway, coffee in one hand, the other tucked into his pocket. No suit, just slacks and a rolled-up dress shirt, slightly disheveled, completely genuine. "You told me to build a system," she said. "I'm building it." He smiled and walked in, setting the coffee next to her. "Come on," he said. "Let's get out of here." She raised a brow. "And go where?" "Anywhere you want." They didn't go far, just downstairs, just outside, to a quiet side street where the city buzz softened into something slower. They walked in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you ever think about how weird all this is?" He gave a half smile. "Which part? Me, you, this whole thing, starting because I sent a text to the wrong number." He looked over at her. "I don't think that was weird." He said, "I think it was the first right thing that happened in a long time." She smiled and didn't argue. Because maybe, for once, everything was unfolding exactly the way it was supposed to. Later that night, after Lily was asleep and the city had gone still, Callie curled up on the couch in her new apartment. One where her name was on the lease and the fridge actually hummed because it was plugged in. She opened her laptop to find a single unread message. It was from Graham. The subject line was blank. There was just one file attached. She clicked it. It was a screenshot. Her original message, the one she'd sent that night in desperation. "Jake, I hate doing this again. Can you send $50? I just need formula. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back, please." Below it, his first reply. "I think you meant to send that to someone else." Underneath the image, he'd written just one line. "The accident that wasn't..." Callie covered her mouth. Tears burned behind her eyes. Not from sadness, but from recognition. She typed back, "You still think it wasn't an accident?" His reply came almost immediately. "I think the universe is better at hiring than HR." She laughed softly alone in the quiet. Then after a moment, she typed one more thing. "You ever think about what happens next?" There was a long pause. "And then, I'd like you and Lily in my life permanently. Not just as a team, not just as co-workers, as mine. If you're ready." Callie read it twice. Not because she doubted the words, but because she never let herself imagine this moment would ever come. She smiled. Then replied, "Ask me again, in person." A minute later, her doorbell rang.